Hi, I want to show you a quick demonstration of my On My Mind action group for drafts. So I came up with the idea actually because of Federico Vettici, who showed his On My Mind shortcut to add content, to add thoughts, ideas, whatever to his Obsidian dashboard. And since I'm heavily using drafts in my daily work, I wanted to create something I can use with drafts with it, and then I created this action group. To install the action group, you can use the link in the description, which will then navigate you to the action directory of drafts. You can also use this link in the file here. Then you will see this page where you can read through the documentation and how to configure it, or you can just watch the video for to the end, and then you can press on the install button here, which will ask you to open drafts. Since I already have installed it, I won't do this. So you can also support me on Buy Me a Coffee if you like the action group. So the key idea is to always be able to add content to a draft called On My Mind, which you can process later. So just have a note, a thought, then quickly note it, or then send it to the On My Mind draft. And processing is done later when you have time for it, or when you want to do it actually. So the first thing is when you installed the On My Mind action group, you maybe want to run On My Mind, the action On My Mind, which opens the draft On My Mind. And if you don't have one, it will create the On My Mind draft for you. I already had it, so it just opened it. Nothing really special in it here right now, because we didn't add some content. So I have a draft here, which maybe I create on the go, and then I want to add it to the On My Mind draft. Therefore, I can use the add draft to On My Mind action, which will then add this draft to the On My Mind draft, the content, and delete the other draft. So you have the content now in this On My Mind draft. Another action you can use is the add to On My Mind draft, which actually will just display a prompt and ask you for what's on your mind. And maybe I don't have water anymore, so I just type by water here and press Command and Enter to add it, to run the add button and add it to the content here. So you see it was sent to the On My Mind draft, and the two chunks of text are divided by two new lines. So one new line after the line and one is in between. Now let's say I have another draft where there are already some new line characters inside. I want to add this to my On My Mind draft. This is just a lorem ipsum generated text. And I run the add draft to On My Mind again. Let's see what happens. So now the action removed all the double new lines from the text to prevent it. Will consider it as several chunks of text later in the processing action. You will see what you can do now with the processing action. When you run it, it will ask you about actions to run on those chunks of text. So this is the first chunk of text, which we will ask the next chunk of text, and a bigger chunk of text we will be able to process. So let's run it and see what it does. So you see it displays the first chunk of text we want to process. So maybe this is a cool idea I need to think of, and I need to take some notes on it later. So we just skip it for now. And the buy water, of course, is a task. So I personally use Todoist, so I send it to my Todoist inbox. And the last chunk of text displayed here is not really useful for me anymore. It was just generated text anyway, so I just trash it. And when I select the action to run on the last chunk of text, it will actually be executed. So let's see what it does now. You can see there is a notification that I added a task to my Todoist inbox from the action I run, and the bigger text is gone, and the only thing in my on my mind draft is still a cool idea I need to think of. These are the main actions you can use. There's also an on my mind action for which just displays a prompt to select which action from these you want to run. I personally use it as widget on my iPhone, so I can simply run this and then decide open it or add something to it. And that's why the add draft to on my mind action is not displayed in this prompt. So I need to cancel this. And of course, you're thinking, like, how can I configure this to my own needs? The first thing you will notice is these two actions on the top. So there's the on my mind configuration draft. When you when you click on edit, this window will be presented, and you can see there's a template tag called on my mind draft name, which contains on my mind right now. This actually will set the title for the on my mind draft. So when I change it here to another, we will see later that it uses another on my mind draft. So this will be always the title, and only one on my mind draft may exist in your database with this title. So you can configure it if you want to name it otherwise. The next thing you can use or configure by yourself is the content divider, so which divides the chunks of text in the content. This looks empty here, but it actually is a new line character here. This also must not be empty, so I personally use it with a new line, but you could also change it to, for example, use a bullet list with a space and a dash. And now when I close this, I reconfigured some parts of the on my mind action group. So when I now click on add to open to add to on my mind, I will type something else, and we can see that it added something to on my mind, but we don't see it right now. That's because another draft is open with some content, and I don't want to disrupt your work when you have something on my mind on your mind. So let's open the on my mind draft, and you can see it has created another open on my mind draft, and also it used the dashes which divides the content. So when I add something else to it, it will just use another dash for it. It's added like this, and the processing action will use this divider too. So we can just say, I want to trash this, and we want to trash this, so the draft is empty at the end. Now these are the configuration options for the general thing. Please ensure that you don't change those template tags here, because I'm using them in the other action to ensure to get your settings. And of course, you need to think of how can I configure the actions I can run on the drafts. Therefore, you open the process on my mind action and navigate to the script step here, and then you click on edit. This edit actually I have a theme active, which is not very friendly for editing code, but you get the idea now. So you see the first thing in this draft is the action array, and this array actually contains several elements, and these elements are always divided into two things. So when you remember what was presented in the prompt of the process on my mind action, I could see the Todoist inbox as a button. This is actually just a text presented in a button, and the second element here, divided by a comma and then the dashes in the top, is the actual name of the inbox of the action I want to run. So when I just copy this text here and search for through my actions, you will find there's an inbox lines action, which will add the lines of a chunk of text to the Todoist inbox. So when I now want to add an action, I have two things to do. You can copy the whole line, or you can use, for example, those commented outlines here. I personally prefer to add them in between here. So let's say I want to maybe make something stupid, which doesn't really make sense, but I could, for example, use it to add the line again to the on my mind draft. I will name this edit again, and then I have to insert the exact name of the action I want to use here. So I just click on edit, copy the name, and paste the name into the two dashes here. When I now click save, I have changed the process array. Of course, now I don't have any lines on my currently configured on my mind draft, so I'll just configure it back to my previous configuration to use the old on my mind draft, and now I can open the on my mind draft again. So I add just another text to make sure that there are more chunks in it. So now when I run the process on my mind action, you can see it added another button here. So when I add a cool, when I press now the add it again action button and then skip the test text chunk, not trash it, but skip it, you will see it is added to the on my mind draft again. And that's how you can configure it. You can actually use any action in your drafts actions to insert it here and name it how you like. So I personally prefer to use some emojis here and add them to make some nicer appearance to it. There are three things I would recommend you to keep in this configuration. So the first thing is the on my mind new draft actions, which is a helper action. This actually will create a new draft from the line you're processing. I can show you that in a bit. And of course the two buttons on the bottom, the trash button, which will delete a line, and the skip, which will keep a line in the on my mind draft. Yeah, that's all I wanted to show you about the processing action. So now let's see what the create new draft action can do. I will just process it again. So the test text is really not necessary for me, so I just delete it. And the cool idea I need to think of here, I want to think of it in a new draft. So I can just press new draft and it should have made a new draft with the cool idea I need to think of. And this is the draft which was created right now. Yeah, I hope you like it, and if you have any questions or ideas, just reach out to me.